Cherry, and I am going to, as I always do, give me a second. I need to share this Be Live feed with my other page. So hold on one second, and then we'll get right to it. So we have some really cool people in the studio, and we're going to have a great conversation as always. So if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. Of course, it goes slow when I'm trying to make it work, but give me a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, share. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, Jessica. So Jessica, my engineer, she's gonna bring me in, and I'm gonna do quick bios, and then we'll get right to it. I can't hear you.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
And 3. Oh shit. I mean, I'm sorry.
So like the Breakfast Club? Can we cut?
No. Okay.
Don't say more than shit.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2.
Welcome to the Sanctuary. You're listening to DC Radio 96.3, HD4, and DCRadio.gov. I'm Wendy Cherry, your host, and today we have a great topic. We're talking about the importance of representation of people of color, not even people of color, of Black people and melanated people in the media, in both film and in books and in everywhere. So I have some amazing guests here. First, I have DeShuna Spencer, and she is the founder and CEO of kweli TV, which celebrates global Black culture through curated, undiscovered, and award-winning indie films, documentaries, web series, children's programming, and events. She's a former radio host and producer of Empower Hour, that was on WPFW 89.3 here in Washington, D.C. So welcome, DeShuna. And then we also have Derrick Young of MahoganyBooks. And MahoganyBooks is the result of Derrick and his wife Ramonda's love for culture, community, and literature, and their desire to see it empower others as it has empowered them. So welcome to the Sanctuary.
Hey, what's going on?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So I just want to get right into it. We are talking about the importance of representation and what that looks like, in the U.S., worldwide, really, but here in the U.S., what that looks like and how important it is that we have representation. So, DeShuna, I am super familiar with kweli TV because I was a beta tester. I don't even know what that meant. I was just on there looking at films and getting excited and being educated. So please tell us what does kweli mean? Mm-hmm. And even if I'm pronouncing it right, and then tell us about how you decided that it was time to birth this.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
Kweli means truth in Swahili. Okay. And so our mission is to curate content that shows a true reflection of the global Black experience. It's interesting, when I started kweli TV, I used to call it kweli TV. Mm-hmm. And I call it kweli TV because it's to live kweli.
Yeah.
And we did a commercial, and the actor's like, kweli, kweli, kweli. And then we posted on Instagram, all these people like, you're saying it wrong. Americans are always stealing our culture. These are people from Kenya who speak Swahili fluently. Okay. And they were like, no, you're saying it wrong. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm Black too. I mean, I don't know, but I'm learning too. And, yeah. and that's one of the reasons why I started kweli TV, because I feel like I want to celebrate Black culture, but I also want us to learn about our culture. Mm-hmm. I feel like in mainstream media, they seem to kind of give us a appeal of, we don't really learn. A lot of times it's more like, we know what's happening in the world. Trump is awful, whatever. And they're just nulling us. So we don't really think for ourselves sometimes. And I really want kweli TV to be a space in which we can learn about our culture. We can celebrate our culture. We can learn what it's like to be Black in different parts of the world. Little Black boys and Black girls can see people who look like them in cartoons in particular. Mm-hmm. I love the cartoons with the giraffes and the elephants, the little Black, the Black one that has swag, right? Mm-hmm. In the cartoons, they have swag, it's like a donkey or something. But I feel like it means much more when a little kid says, wow, that little girl, her hair looks like mine. A little boy, his skin is like mine. And they love themselves more, because when I was a kid, I didn't have that. And I really feel it's important to be able to offer that through the media. So that's one of the reasons why I started kweli TV.
Well, that's beautiful. So Derrick, tell us about how you started Mahogany Books, and then we'll just go to the conversation from there.
Let's try to figure out the short version of it. Myself personally, I'm from here in DC.
Okay.
Went to Suitland, went to Bowie State University. While I was there, I worked at Caribou Bookstore.
Okay.
I knew I always wanted to own some type of business.
Okay.
And my experience at Caribou, my first time working for a Black business, working for two Black men who owned the business and was working to build something not just for themselves, but for their family and their community, that really kind of reflected that image I was looking for. And then to see it done in a bookstore where people will come in consistently and have these engaging conversations, people, elders, young people, men, women, people that you would, look at like, oh, that dude look a little thuggish there, but he's reading some of the deepest books that were in the store,
right,
and having some serious conversation. I realized that this community was here, and that what it meant to be able to have this space where people can come in and engage in these kind of honest, open dialogues with each other around content that was really important to them, something that they wouldn't get in the other bookstores that were around at that time. So from that point forward, I knew a bookstore was what I really wanted to do. That, had different type of other little revenue streams around it, but the centerpiece was always a bookstore.
Okay.
So my wife and I, we started later in life. I got married. We started an online bookstore because she's from Tulsa, and there is no Black bookstores out in Tulsa.
Wow.
Right. I'm used to it here in DC. Right. Saying Cold Fall or the Sister Space, all the Black bookstores that we had access to, but she didn't have access to it there. And it just opened up an even broader view that, if you're not from a city like DC,
right,
there's no access to any of this information. So we started as an online bookstore with the intent of making sure people had access to this kind of information. It was always about, I forget the other words, access and opportunity, right? With a highly curated content library of books that reflected not just, great fiction, but serious books that, when you see, like, I need this book, I won't read it for another 10 years, but I need to have it in my library,
right,
just in case, right? So that was the impetus of it, of really providing a space for people to be able to come in and have these kind of conversations and get access to the information that they can then store for themselves. I just, didn't want people to be, our history to be forgotten or written out of history. And I felt like that was happening.
Right. So you started it, how many years ago was the online and then the actual storefront?
So we are a 13-year overnight success, I guess.
Right.
We've been grinding for a very long time.
Okay.
So I think we started the website. I've never built a website before. It's my first website I built in 2007, I want to say, 2006, 2007.
Okay.
When we launched the website.
Okay.
And then we opened up the brick and mortar in Anacostia, I guess almost 2 years ago, November, 2 Black Fridays ago, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. So now what made you feel confident enough to open it up? Because people were going to Audible and online and all those different things. Like, I always hear some people say, I love to feel books in my hand and the smell. And other people say, I don't have time to read, but I listen in the car. What were you thinking?
So partly, I think that made me mad.
Yeah.
That people keep saying that, like every time we talk about it. So part of it was just my rebellious spirit, that when people tell me no, like, I've got to do it now because you're telling me it can't happen.
Okay.
But I mean, I grew up, my mom is a heavy reader. When I found the joy of books and started putting myself in that space with other people who enjoyed information and knowledge, I knew that that there was no space for that.
Yeah.
Right. There just wasn't a space for it. So at some point, I don't know how many people are here in DC proper, but then PG County, Northern Virginia. You're telling me, like, out of all these people, there were maybe at the time 3 or 4, different brands, not just Caribou who had 6 stores,
right?
But maybe 3 or 4 different brands of Black-owned bookstores, and there were countless, majority mainstream big box white bookstores,
right?
And and that was supposed to serve us,
right?
Like, the numbers just didn't make sense to me,
right? Well, we're glad that you did it. So, DeShuna, can you explain exactly what Kweli TV looks and feels like, and what is the experience that people get when they come to the site?
So for me, I always tell people Kweli TV's community. Number one, we want people around the world to watch our content like they're a part of our community. Most of our customers are Black, but they're around the world. We have customers in parts of Africa and parts of Europe, Latin America, the Caribbean. And that's exactly how I designed it. When a lot of times we talk about the Black experience, people think, or they say, what's Kweli TV? People say African American streaming service. Like, we're not an African American streaming service. We're for all people of the African diaspora, and we want to include everyone from the African diaspora. And that's basically how, when I created the company, I really wanted to be open for that particular reason. The type of experience people get when they come to the site, it's really interesting. I should probably ask people, what they get out of it. For me, what I get out of it is educational, beauty. I think that's an experience that people get out of it. Also, being authentic, right? I think, Kweli means truth. And so our goal is telling an authentic story about the Black experience.
Right.
And I think a lot of times in mainstream media, we don't exactly see that. A lot of times, when I had cable, that's like when I started Kweli TV, I was watching cable and I was like, I can't find anything I want to watch. You flip through channel after channel.
Right.
You see Real Housewives, whatever. You see slapstick comedies. I love my throwback 90s movies. I love them, right? But how many times can I watch Do the Right Thing?
Right.
I wanted to see something more. I wanted to learn about Black excellence beyond like the few Black filmmakers we know about. There are thousands of Black filmmakers, but you don't know about them because mainstream media only lets a few in.
Right.
I think when people see Kweli TV, we on purpose, we include the filmmaker's face.
Yeah.
We want people to know a Black person created this. Not all of our filmmakers are Black, but about 90% of them are.
Okay.
We want people to see a Black person made this film. They were in a lot of film festivals and they make great content. I think we underestimate how great our content is. If it hasn't been in movie theaters, we assume that maybe it's not good, or it's very low budget. They only spent maybe this amount of money on it, so it's not of quality. But I think that one of the things I always hear from people, wow, you can tell the budgets weren't big, but wow, the storyline, the artistry was great. I mean, those are the type of things we want people to see. That also, it doesn't take a lot of money to create something.
Right.
And I'm hoping that other people, when they see the platform and say, wow, this person, they just like me, they went to Howard or whatever, and they create this beautiful story. Maybe I should, put myself out there as well.
Right.
So I think people get all sorts of feelings when they come to the platform. But for me, it's really about, people learning about their authentic selves and for healing. I know offline we're talking about, you've talked about healing on this show, but I really believe that through media, through books, through film, we can heal our community. And so I'm really hoping that people do feel like they're being healed, whether they're watching something that they're learning about their culture for the first time, or even learn about how to eat healthier, whatever the case may be, or they can escape to another part of the world that they may not can afford to go to right now, but they can get the experience through Kweli TV. So healing is also a really big part of what I'm hoping people get out of it.
Well, excuse me, I can tell you from my experience. So I first heard about it maybe in the winter of, when did you start?
We were in beta late fall 2015.
Okay, so I came into it December 2016 because I remember I went home for the holidays. I'm from New Jersey. I went home and my mom and I, we binge watched whatever we could that was on there. And we just learned so much. It was just a lot. And then over the years, when I dial in, So for me, I don't know. I must have been living under a rock. Like I say, I'm from Jersey, but I went to a HBCU. I went to Virginia State. But I really, really, really did not see Black people speaking all types of languages and from all over the world until 1996 when I used to work on a cruise ship. So I worked on a cruise ship. I did events. Out of 325 other workers of the ship, only 2 of us were African American. The majority of the workers were Filipino, but then there were a few Caribbean, and they were from all the different islands, and then a few Africans, and they spoke, you know, from both East and West, from all over, and they spoke all these languages. So I'm sitting there going like, I'm used to East Coast Jersey stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like it was a culture shock. I was shocked. And they had so many questions for me about why do we say the N-word? They were asking me just about life. You know, the Fugees had just come out in 96. So they loved the music, but they were just asking me about the culture. And I don't even think I had any answers because I just lived it. But I kind of just lived it on the on like the hamster wheel. And I didn't even know that there was something else to know, you know? So when I look at Kweli TV, I can go to Brazil. I can be in, you know, looking at Carnival and the downside of Carnival in one of the documentaries that you have. I don't know all the titles of them.
The other side of Carnival.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have the Hidden Colors up there. You have one of my friends, you have Out of Darkness up there that really just breaks down, you know, different ways of colonization. So, and then one of the ones that I really loved was Rena Moans, and it was about sexuality for Black women. You can't just go anywhere. There's nowhere else on, you know, any platform that I know of that you can talk about that. So my experience is just like, I want everybody to know, like, I want everybody to, at least know that it's around. They can make their choice, you know, what they want to do. But I feel like sometimes people don't even know what's there. And it's so much cheaper. All these pluses and all these different, you know, platforms are coming out with all this content. Okay. But how about supporting people that look like you, who are telling stories about you and telling stories about people who, you know, look like you, and then stories of people that you would have never, ever known. Like, that's the part that I'm really gung-ho about, is like getting people to spend their money there, because that's where you get your power from, and you spend the money with the people who are doing things for you.
Hey now.
Exactly.
Yes. So let's talk about why, you know, Derrick, why is it important for us to have a voice? And so I have the 3 V's: voice, visibility, and then validation. Let's leave validation for the end, because I, you know, want to make sure that we stay there and talk about that a little bit more.
So if we're talking about voice, I think the number one thing is, especially from a literary perspective, is who's telling our story.
Right.
I mean, if we really want to unpack this, who is telling our story? African Americans were kidnapped from Africa, brought into the U.S., exploited for their labor to make other people rich.
Yep.
Now, if you read a book by John Henry Clark, he'll explain this, and he'll explain the motivations of slavery, the capitalism behind it, people's greed behind it. If you read this story from another person's perspective, then we get, oh, well, it's manifest destiny.
They were settlers.
We get, you know, it is all about Thanksgiving and what are we talking about? I mean, if we really want to get to the healing aspect of it, we can't really heal until we know what the issues are, what our history is, and how do we need to what we need to do to get up from under it. Right. A non-African American writer, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, you have to know what's happening, right? You have to know your enemy. You have to know what the tactics is being used, right? So who's telling our story goes a long way into us being able to answer some of these questions. Who's doing the research, right? One of my favorite books, Destruction of Black Civilization, John Henry Clark, Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust. These are like fundamental books. If you don't read these books, then you don't know why we're actually here.
Right.
And then what is the hidden motivations to, you know, I don't want to go too deep, but, you know, when you talk about slavery to indentured servitude, right? You're working all these hours for minimal pay.
Right.
But productivity keeps going up.
Right.
So what's really happening here?
Right.
Right. Why do we teach entrepreneurship in some neighborhoods, but not in our neighborhoods?
Mm-hmm.
Are we just, you know, teaching labor, or are we teaching people to be entrepreneurs, to go out and go after their dreams and to make things happen for themselves and other people?
Right.
Right. So that's part of the voice. Who's telling our story? And so we know that it's authentic and it's coming from us, from a trusted person.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
You listen to your mom and your daddy because you know they got your best interest at heart. That dude that's on a corner, you know what? I don't know if I need to be listening to him.
Right.
You're not here for me.
Right.
So for me, that's what it really comes down to, is that the voice of the people, and that the voice, people who are telling the story, who really have a dedication to our people, a love for our people, are the people that I want to listen to. And I want to make sure that those books, that knowledge is accessible at all times.
Right.
Right. So that's, I mean, for me, voice, like that's a huge thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
DeShuna, how about you for voice?
I was really thinking, like, you know, about that, because in my industry, I feel like voice has been hijacked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing called the streaming wars, and
the streaming wars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe I thought everyone's familiar with it. Maybe have you heard that term before?
No.
Oh, you haven't heard it before either. So the streaming wars, Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, everyone and grandma has gotten into the game, and everyone knows that Black stories are the thing, right? And I always feel like when it comes to our stories, at first we were being shut out, right? Like no one was giving us a chance. I like the 90s was this renaissance of these Black movies, and there were these shows on TV, and then like the OOs, and I want to say up until like 5 years ago, it was like not much happening. And then lately there's this an explosion of everyone wants to get into the game. But I feel like, because why are people trying to get into the game? Why is Netflix spending billions of dollars on content? Is it because they care about telling authentic stories?
It's money.
Exactly. And so I think that for me, voice is about ownership, owning our voice. The big companies, they know what they're doing. I have no shade against Netflix, like, or anything like that. They have this thing called Strong Black Lead, and Strong Black Lead is kind of like a platform that's strictly for African American content. And once a month, the first of the month, they release the 6 or 7 films that's African American focused for the month. And the guys, you know, oh my God, they're gonna have Malcolm X, which I love Malcolm X, like one of my favorite movies. I'm like, oh, but I don't have Netflix, so oh well. But everyone's so excited about the scraps of films that Netflix is giving our community, our voice. But Netflix is doing it because they just want to take our money. They're not doing it because they really, I'm not saying they don't really care. At the end of the day, like the CEO of Netflix recently, he was interviewed for something. That was I can't remember the comedian's name, but he's from the Middle East, or he's Middle Eastern. And there was a particular segment that he did that really mocked, I forgot what part, maybe somewhere in the Middle East, I forgot, but maybe Saudi Arabia. And they decided not to play that part, that segment in Saudi Arabia, because they didn't want to upset anyone. Now, when I interviewed the CEO of Netflix, he was like, we're not in a social justice. We're not in a truth to power business. Those were his exact words. Oh. Now, I could have like posted up like, you know, this is this your, like, Killmonger, is this your master?
Right. Right.
Because everyone in grandma loves Netflix, but they're not in a truth to power business. kweli TV isn't a truth to power business.
Right.
So I think that I have nothing against people supporting a Netflix because we don't have like the mainstream films. You want to watch The Hangover or Ted, the little, stuffed animal who's vulgar from Boston. If you want to watch that, we won't have those films, right? So I get that. But I also think that it's important to make sure we support voices that aren't heard. And then we're putting money back into those voices, right? And so to me, that's what voice means. Like really speaking truth to power, not being apologetic about it, not being afraid to do it.
Right.
Whether that means like, we won't have 10 million subscribers, we may only have 1 million one day, but that's okay because we're making sure that we're being authentic and we're telling our true stories, and we're really giving our resources back to our filmmakers. 60% of our revenue goes to our filmmakers. So, for me, it's really important to make sure that, they're the reason why we exist, and we can keep them, creating more great content, telling more authentic stories through their voice, through the resources that we have through our revenue.
So now, how did you get to that? Like, were you in the second grade, like, I'm going to do this? Like, what was the evolution to you getting to where you are with that mindset and being unapologetic about creating something like this?
Wow, that's okay. So second grade, she wasn't even around when I was in second grade. But when I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a storyteller.
Okay.
I remember I was bused from like my inner city neighborhood to like a predominantly white school, and I didn't feel very beautiful. I hate to admit I didn't like my skin, I didn't like my hair, I didn't like anything about myself. Just keeping it real, because back then, now all these dolls look like us. You get so much reaffirmation. I didn't have that as a kid. My Barbie dolls were blonde with blue eyes, and I went to this school. All the girls I saw were blonde with blue eyes, and I'm like, wow, they're the beautiful ones, and I'm just a little ugly black girl. That's literally what I thought. But I hadn't had low self-esteem because of it. But what kept me going was being able to express myself. So I kept a journal from like kindergarten up until college.
Wow.
The same journal I wrote in, like it was a really big journal. And we had these storytellers who would come in, and they would be so energetic and tell these stories. And they were poets and writers, and they would come to my school because this was a kind of affluent school that I would get opportunity to go to in elementary school, and everybody's kind of after that. But I was like, wow, that's so cool. They're engaging, and that's what I wanted to be. So my initial dream in life was to be a writer, and I still do want to write more. And then as I got older, I was like, well, maybe I should be a journalist, because as I started reading stories about, published authors, they have like these mental issues, they commit suicide. I was like, I don't know. Well, it's true that a lot of, historically, a lot of authors, especially back in the day, they, they're so genius that, they have sometimes you write as a way to sort of, deal with their mental illness. And so it kind of, and I was the type of person who would read stories. I read the authors' stories and actually read their biographies. And I read their biographies. So I was like, oh. So I was like, maybe, and also to do with, it's just like a lot of filmmakers, a lot of authors, novelists, it's hard to make money in that industry. So I was like, I'll be a journalist, and that way I can have a steady, income as a writer. And I went to college for journalism, went to Jackson State University. So all of us are HBCU grads in here. And when I was my senior year, I had this idea about starting an online magazine. My initial idea was a magazine for girls, so Black girls, because again, I didn't see that at the time, like Black girls, the affirmation. But as time went on, when I started working for newspapers, when I started doing interviews, I was a cop reporter at like an Oakland Tribune, and I would interview a lot of moms who their kids were shot, and I didn't like that. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do this journalism thing. And so that's sort of where I decided to say, okay, how can I create something that is empowering to people? And that's sort of where it kind of shifted for me. I want to say like, early 20s, where I said, I don't want to just write just because I want to entertain people, but I think whatever I do, I want it to be uplifting and healing. And that's where the journey started. I always knew that storytelling was a way of healing, but I didn't really know how I could make that into something when I was really young. But as I grew older, I started learning that I can really make this into something that's that people can come away from it and feel better about themselves or want to give back, or, because I really think storytelling can really change the world. I really, really believe that.
I do too. I do too. So a few things that you hit on. I'm a 70s baby. I was born in 1970. So my mom, somehow she always got Black baby dolls. She always had Black books. She always exposed us to those things. And I went to see The Wiz on Broadway with Stephanie Mills in like 76, 75, 76. And it changed my whole life. I remember that they all look like me. I think I saw that before I saw The Wizard of Oz, to be honest. So I saw that. And then I saw Stephanie Mills singing, and I realized that music had an effect on me too. Mm-hmm. And so I just went from there. She always dropped little seeds. She always showed us the documentaries. She always gave us the information about now. And she's not outwardly fight the power kind of chick. She was not a marcher. She was none of those things, but just very quietly and very intentionally, she would just drop the seed on us. Right. And so that's just kind of how we grew up. And then out of college, my god sister had a Black bookstore. And her husband was from Africa at the time. And she had the ISIS papers, and she had all of the books. Whatever was going on in 92, 93 is what she had, whatever was hot and popping. Mm-hmm. And so I would sit there and just read the books. I got in trouble because I would read the books and then I would bend it right here. And she'd be like, you have to either buy it or, whatever. Right. So I feel like I always had the images, but still, that white gaze, we're like, did you want to say something?
Yeah, can I? Yeah, so where was that at?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So this comes back to access.
Okay.
Right. So again, Mississippi, Alabama,
Memphis,
West Virginia,
right.
Memphis, all of these areas that don't have, number one, the kind of opportunity for people to have the capital to build these type of organizations, these kind of institutions, right? To kind of fund it. My wife is from Tulsa.
Yeah.
Home of Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
Right? Like she literally, like where the Gap Band got the names from. Like she's right around there.
Right.
We can walk to Black Wall Street from our house where it was located. No Black bookstores, hardly any Black owned businesses. So again, the access and for people to know that this even exists, right? To know that this can be done is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So, it comes down to, number one, is the content even available, right? For people to create.
Right.
Right. And then are the organizations, businesses, or institutions making that stuff available to the population? When we was writing the business plan, I got tired of my job and I was like, I can't do this. It was like after 15 years.
Same.
And, so we decided I'm going to take a year off, use retirement, and really complete the business plan for a full-fledged brick and mortar bookstore.
Okay.
And during that time, I would go from bookstore to bookstore and secretly count the books on their shelves that was written for, by, or about people of the African diaspora. And I would go from major bookstore to major bookstore, like all around the DMV. And I would secretly write down on my phone, go back, put into the business plan. What I found was that most big box bookstores, less than 2%, not being generous when I say 2%, it's really a little over 1%.
Wow.
Of their books are written for, by, or about people of the African diaspora. And these are major big box bookstores with 10,000+ square feet of retail space. So you might be talking about 50,000 books or more. And less than 2% of their books in major areas. This is here in the DMV.
Right.
Where people have money.
Right.
So it's not because, people, buying a book is like a tertiary type of item. When you talk about entertainment, right? You go to movies first, you go out to eat, then you might buy a book.
Correct. Right.
But these are college educated people making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. And yet we still can't get access to books here in DC. Like, so my point is, you were lucky. Like, because my mom did the same thing. She searched it out. Right. Yeah. My mom's not fighting the power, but she got her opinions.
Yeah.
And she knew for her kids, I got to give them something.
Yes.
They put in the extra effort, be intentional about finding something to make sure that what they see is not just the end all be all.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why when we talk about voice, talk about access, I forget the second V.
Well, we have visibility and then validation.
Visibility, right? Because then if you see that it's there, if Karibu never existed, right? If those two brothers did not own their business, I would not have seen. I know my father grinded, like he worked 6-7 days a week, right? Grinded, but I didn't see many Black men owning a business,
right,
with the intention of not just providing for their family, but providing jobs for other people,
right,
to support their families,
right.
That visibility. So again, how are we in our stories and what we write, whether it's journalism, what we report in the news, right? What we show on the films, what we write in the books. All this is important in how we see ourselves.
Right.
Right. I know I'm going a little bit longer, but I just want to say, so we just had Tomi Adeyemi for a book event last week. Okay. We had it at the Arc down in Southeast DC. Doesn't happen a lot. Okay. Right. We're there. We're pushing to bring these authors in. Huge author. Right. This book is big time. I think it's like an instant bestseller. Okay. Right. She was on stage. Her first book was Children of Blood and Bone. Second book is Children of Virtue and Vengeance. She's 24, 25 years old. And she was talking about when she was in school, taking creative writing classes, she would write stories that either featured white people or biracial people. She's Nigerian American.
Oh, wow.
But she was saying what she was reading, what she was used to seeing, what came out of her own writing, a Black woman writing stories. Right. She was writing about people who are either white or biracial. Wow. And this is a writer who's a Black woman. Yeah. So it goes to show what she's reading, what she's seeing still impacts the content that she creates. Yeah. And she was like, I had to figure like, whoa, when she realized it. Right. Okay, what is this?
That white gaze is serious.
So again, the visibility, right? Even people who are creating content, they have to see these positive images so they can believe it themselves. Right. Right. So they know that it exists. Right. So that they can then turn around and create the content. So when people see these films, okay, this is possible.
Right. Well, you even have something about Black Wall Street on the site. So y'all need to get on Kweli TV, pay for the subscription.
$5.99 a month.
$5.99 a month. Because I know some of y'all are paying that $13.99 for other places in $10.99, $5.99 a month. And get on and learn about and see what's available. So my mom introduced me to Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben then went into Dr. Clark. And then, you get into everything. And then Tony Browder. So then I started reading his books, and then I went to Kemet with him because I like what's in books, but I'm the chick who needs to see it for myself. So then we go and then we see all these lectures, and then I, through Gina Page, I did it in 2007. I traced my my DNA to Cameroon. So in 2007, it didn't really mean too much because I was just like, okay, this is where I'm from. I'm adopted. So I was just trying to put all the pieces together. And then I actually went to Cameroon in 2015. And so I'm there and the white gaze is there. I never would have imagined I would go to Africa because, I just didn't know, and see all of the colonization that has happened, specifically from a French perspective, at least in Cameroon. So I can understand why the sister was writing from that, because I feel like they might even be far worse off than we are.
Yeah, they are.
Imperialism is worldwide.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
colonization is worldwide. It's not just here.
Yeah.
It's not just, that's why when DeShuna talks about the African diaspora, when we put it into, I remember my wife saying specifically, why are we saying African diaspora in our mission statement? I said, because we have to be, even if we have to teach people what that is and what that means,
Right.
we have to let them know that we are part of a bigger collective of people.
Right. Right. So I am a new author, and my book I'm sending it to the printer on Friday.
Hey, now.
Congratulations.
Oh my gosh. It took forever, and it taught me a lot about myself and just whatever, right? But in the book, you talking about healing, and then talking about putting the pieces together of why we do the certain things we do. So I, am in the process of healing, but I'm not trying to get stuck on the healing. I'm trying to activate. I'm trying to move, because I feel like we have a lot of healing to do, but now we're at the point where everybody's healing and then they're stuck in the healing. So the book is like a workbook. It has mantras, it has action plans. It actually helps you discover what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And what are you feeling like when you're doing it? And so I talk about epigenetics, which is, how you being in your mother's womb affects you and your family. I talk about transgenerational trauma. And then I also talk about the mother wound. And these are all things that affected me. And so I'm not just telling this story to get my stuff out. I'm also giving like a blueprint and an action plan. And one of my friends who read it called it a toolkit of how to ascend past all those things, because you have to know what it is to heal it, but then what you're going to be healing forever and using the excuse of, well, this happened to me forever. So that's what my book is about. It's called From Jersey to Me, because I'm from Jersey and I was trying to figure out who the hell I was, so getting to me, and then the awakening and healing of a goddess, because I didn't know I was a goddess, but now I'm clear. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the point. Like, I recognize my own divinity. And the point of the book, and I have the Sankofa symbol on it, because it's like the going back to remember, to remember these things that we're born with. Like, we're born that way. And because of all imperialism and all these messages and media with TED and these crazy books that, keep our vibrations low, it ain't showing us our divinity. And I feel like once we are able to recognize that, you got to do the work. So this is the workbook, do the work to get to that. But once you realize that there's so many other things that we can be doing, and then you won't want to consume what is on some other platforms. You'll only want to support and circulate the dollars within the communities of people who are working to do it for us. So before, we started, I was hearing you talk about some of the ways that it can be a little challenging to bring this gift to our people, right? You on the digital side and then you on the book side. So let's talk about what that can look like. Let's talk about what it looks like to run a bookstore. Let's talk about what it looks like to and they're both going, well, the big sigh. But so it's the emotional labor, but I know it's a labor of love. Definitely a labor of love. But let's talk a little bit about that labor and how important it is for us to support those who are doing the labor in this way.
Right. I try to make sure I catch myself, because it is hard work. Yes, it's a bookstore. It's hard work. It's a lot,
yes.
Right? For most times, I would assume Black entrepreneurs are undercapitalized, overcapacity. It's never really a good place to be, right? So it is a lot.
Yeah.
But I would not do anything else. I would never change what I'm doing. My journey to get me to here and what I'm doing, I would never change. Like, this is what I see myself doing for the rest. You can't give me no money, no amount of money, go working for anybody else.
Right.
It would never happen.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna go open up some more Mahogany books.
Right.
That's what I'm gonna go do.
Right.
So I've come to realize that the challenges that you deal with every day, the constant stuff that you have to manage and handle and figure out how to piece together, it's part of the territory.
Yeah.
But the joy that we get when I get to, purchase, I can't remember the name of these puzzles this young lady created for kids with images of Black kids on it, like 48-piece jumbo piece puzzles. She came into the store. She's like, I have this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, do you understand? I've been looking for something like this for a mom, for a dad, a grandparent to walk in and say, hey, a puzzle for my kids. That opportunity for to be able to support that business owner. So every time a person buys a book, right, they go to the website, purchases a book, and I'm able to turn around and support another Black entrepreneur. Right. We purchase some of the Dinker cards we have from a sister out in the UK. So even with the extra shipping charge we get for that, we're able to support her. Right. So this is our T-shirts, our pins, our totes. When I get to purchase books from self-published independent authors, like, this is our ability to support our community so that more entrepreneurs are being grown.
Yeah.
They can support other people and our economy can flourish. So, like, every time someone drives across town from Northwest to Southeast, Northeast to Southeast, from Gaithersburg to Southeast, I understand they're being very intentional about spending their dollar with us. And it's incumbent upon us. We talk about this all the time with our booksellers, the kind of experience and customer service we provide them to make sure that we understand that, number one, we understand the intentionality behind it, but then we're also going to offer them a service that they can't get anywhere else.
Right.
So we're working our butts off because this is what we love to do. Right. It's a service that is absolutely done with the intention of, yes, want to take care of my wife and my daughter, but also that when we had some kids come from Thurgood Marshall High School into the store, I talked to like 20 of them. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. We gave them 3 of them a chance to volunteer at the store and get a chance to meet Tomi Adeyemi last week, and I gave them some books. Right, for volunteering. Like, this is an opportunity to give back and support people. We have 2 kids from Ballou, 2 kids from Anacostia who wrote books. Oh, wow. We did. We gave them a book signing in the store. Oh, wow. On Small Business Saturday. So the number of people that came through our store, they got to see them, and they were actually in there signing books. We gave them tables, water, like any other author. That's cool. Like, what do you guys need? You're authors right now. So hopefully they see themselves in that position, like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Right. It's an opportunity. So when people support us, we're making sure that we're supporting other people. So that's what happens. That dollar is being recirculated each and every time. Did your daughter work there too? Yes. Okay. And she makes sure I pay her. Okay. In fact, she has bookmarks she sells in there. Okay. She comes in there, she works. She's 14 years old. Okay. So she knows when she needs to get some hour, she's going out with her friends or whatever. She's like, hey, can I come in and work on the weekend? Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, come on. We're going to shelve some books, return some books, something, help you at an event or whatever. Because, yes, so she sees the family business, but she can also sell stuff as an entrepreneur. Yep. Right. You buy your product, turn it around and you sell it, or you can work as a I ain't gonna say employee because government, whatever, but you can get paid for some time you work with the store. Yeah. So here's how you can create income and wealth. Right. Yes. Hopefully she understands it's better as an entrepreneur to sell products versus a trade. Time for dollars. Yes, absolutely. So I, like you, came up out of that corporate America. And so I'm a new entrepreneur, like just 2.5 years. And, it's been interesting, and I'm learning, and what I'm learning is I got to keep my vibration high so that I don't get into fear. Cause that's what people like, there are a lot of fear around it. So it's been a journey. It's been an interesting journey. So for you, DeShuna, how do you even curate these, the films that you have on your site?
So our curation is through film festivals. Most of our films, pretty much all of our films are from film festivals. we do have some partnerships with film festivals, but for the most part, when I started kweli TV, I remember reaching out to, like 50 film festivals. No one got back to me. That's fine. I mean, as an entrepreneur, most people don't return your emails and phone calls. You just kind of have to keep hustling. So I was like, okay, so I won't get the films through a partnership with the film festivals. I have to get in another way. And literally, I have a spreadsheet of film festivals that I like. And once the festival has ended, I go to the website, check out the films I think would be a good fit for kweli TV. And as a former journalist, I can find almost anyone's email address, and I reach out to them on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook and get their film. I mean, it can be a tedious type of ordeal to get the content, but once we get it, like people like it. So we're really about making sure we're curating that, content that really speaks to our particular audience.
Right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, because we have 10 minutes, is validation and why, what is your take on validation? And so we just had, I thought about it because we just had the sister from South Africa be crowned Miss Universe. So apparently all four, the Miss Universe, Miss USA, all those slots are taken by Black women.
Right.
And everybody's so hyped about it. And it's a beautiful thing because, my daughter really didn't even know life without a Black president. Whether I agree with everything he did or not, she still has the fact that there was a Black president, during her lifetime. And so some little girls will have never seen anything else but these four women in the, quote unquote, top slots of beauty. So I think about coming from entertainment. I think about how I was on the music side specifically. And I think about how some people really needed the validation of other people to feel like they made it. So what do you think about that? And have you ever had any talk with filmmakers about how they feel about that?
So I would say for my filmmakers first, for them, validation is people actually watching the film and getting something out of it. I think a lot of the filmmakers who I work with in particular, they have, I wouldn't say a realistic lens, but a lens about the reality of what it's like to be a Black filmmaker, and the fact that only so many get a chance to become like the mainstream filmmakers. Yeah. And so for them, their main goal is for people to watch it. So validation is, did you watch it? Did you like it? Right. That is like very basic type of, you just want people to get what you created and enjoy it. For me personally, validation is very interesting. So I don't go around seeking like awards or pat on the backs. For me, validation, and you were talking earlier, Derrick, about the challenges of being an entrepreneur, but the opportunities, right? This has been like a really challenging year in particular. Every year's been really challenging. I can't even say this year in particular. Every year is a challenge as an entrepreneur. There hasn't been a year like, wow, this was a really smooth year being a business owner. Right. But I will say that when you have those moments of like, why am I doing this? Even though, like, Derrick, I don't want to do anything else. I love it. You don't have to pay me. I love, having this company and curating this content. But you get depressed sometimes because like it's hard. Yeah. But you get those emails or phone calls. To me, that's validation, right? One customer, because I handle customer service, people are like, I thought your name was Keisha. No, it's me. So, I talked to her personally. She was an older woman. She's like in her 60s or something, and she was out for. She hurt herself at her job, and so she said she was out for 6 weeks, and she watched kweli TV every day. And she's like, how I healed? kweli TV. Don't you give up, baby. You hear me now? I was like, yes, ma'am. Yeah. So that's validation because it was a really low day for me. I think we had just experienced wire fraud and we were out of thousands of dollars in our bank account. And I was like questioning, this was early this year, and I was questioning like why these things keep happening. But then someone gives you a validation saying, hey, this helps me. Yeah. And to me, I was talking to my husband about this morning about a streaming service that's kind of like a competitor of ours, but they show mainstream, I would say the slapstick comedies, the stage plays, the type of content we typically don't have on kweli TV,
Yep.
and they have a lot of, based off of what I read online, it was Bob Johnson's, he owned a streaming service, but he sold it to AMC.
Okay.
And they claim that, it's like close to 1 million subscribers. I'm like, close to 1 million. And so I was like, oh my God. And so I was telling my husband, like, maybe I'm doing something wrong because we have nowhere near that. And he was like, well, but you know what your mission is, right? You can't seek validation based off of how many people are watching. Like, your audience and you just need to find them, right?
Yeah.
And so I think validation also is taking a step back, understanding that you have a bigger mission than receiving the validation that, people think they need to feel important or to feel valued, but just finding a way that, you make an impact with the people who are supposed to get what you need, what they need from what you have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what could the listeners, we have 5 minutes, what could the listeners do to support? Subscribe and come buy some books?
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. I mean,
Yeah.
I think specifically, it's in context on what DeShuna was talking about with validation, is that the authors, especially when they're published by these big companies, big publishers, a lot of times the teams don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
They don't know how to market them, how to create a tour for them, where the people who they're actually writing the books for are the people that's in the audience.
Right.
So when you support a company like Mahogany Books or another Black bookstore who's doing these kind of tours, who's creating this community, this engagement, this access to the authors as well as the books, you give authors a chance to actually have their work validated, because they can come and speak to us and actually have this conversation with someone that was their actual intended recipient of this content. Right. And for them, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because they don't get that when they go across the river. Right.
It is true.
When they come to the Southeast, they're talking to you, and we're like, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Right. So they're getting that validation. I think that's a huge piece of it. And that's why we do our own bestsellers list every month.
Okay.
Because we want to reflect out what our readers are reading.
Yeah.
Now we're not worried about New York Times bestsellers.
Right.
What are our readers reading? Because this is what's really important to us. Don't tell us that other stuff is important to us. This is what we're actually choosing.
And then, you know what? So 2 things. One of my, somebody that I saw recently got online and said, everybody buy this specific book for 99 cents. And then it came out that person was on the best-selling list. I'm like, oh, that was like, okay, so just know that happens when you see that. But then the other thing for my book, I wrote it for Black women and for Black families. I feel like if you heal a Black woman, you heal the nation, right? So my mom is so cute. She wants to send it to her seniors group, who might be 200 of them, and she's like one of 5. I'm like, mommy, it ain't for them. And I don't want nobody side-eyeing you. I'm not going to have to do 95 North to come whoop nobody's little behind because they side-eyeing you, because I'm unapologetic about my version of the story in my book.
Right.
And so she's still digesting what that means, but I don't tell it to everybody in the 2 minutes. I don't share it with everybody because it ain't for everybody.
Right.
I have a lot of acquaintances and other people who are like, oh my God, let me know when the book comes out and send me the link. And I'm like, you don't want this link, sis. You don't. And so some people have bought it, but then I also know that I don't have to worry about how they feel about it, because then that's also the European gaze and the European lens. They don't worry about they don't worry about how we feel when we buy their stuff, because it's just always there. So, my mom. So then one of my other friends was just like, the green is still green, and I do believe that too. But when it's intimate like that, my mom, I already know what I said in here, so you're not gonna side-eye my mom at the little meetings. So, it's just really interesting about the validation. I don't need the validation from anybody else because I know who I created it for. It's my first time, and maybe I'll think of things differently on the next one if there's a next one. But it's just been very interesting to see how unapologetic I am allowing myself to be, that my message is for the people that I love, which is us. So we have 1 more minute left. Let's talk about how we can find you all on social and on your websites and things like that.
So www.kweli.tv. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at KWELI-TV.
Okay.
Awesome. Same thing, Mahogany Books, MahoganyBooks.com. It's Mahogany Books on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And you can also come holler us in Southeast on Good Hope Road, inside the Anacostia Art Center.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I think it's very important what you're doing. I thank you for what you're doing. Don't give up, baby. Don't give up and don't give up. And then you can find my book on my website at wendycherry.com/book. And then it'll be on Amazon and it'll be on Audible and it'll be on all those things. But, you know, it's very important that you support those of us creators and those of us who are, you know, creating platforms and spaces to get the music, to get the information and the books and everything out. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me in the sanctuary. We will see you next time. Peace.
Peace.